Ra, thanks for joining me this morning. Really excited to kind of connect with you and chat about all the exciting stuff you're building. But as we always do, for those who have not met you or haven't seen your work, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah, and I appreciate you having me today. It was really good to meet you a few weeks ago, and I'm glad we got to make this happen. But Ra Kazadi, primarily explore art, music, and culture and other mediums. Think of myself as a creative problem solver for everything from branding to design to execution, concept. So, say if it's like an event, if it's an art piece, if it's a brand book, we kind of just have the concept, take it through all the stages, and then give you a product at the end of it.
Incredible. And that's all under your company, Nostalgia Noise. And we'll get into that, but your
Yeah.
ability to walk the line of creatives and business puts you in a unique place to make these things happen. Before we get to that, right, we start everything with kind of your SMU story, your journey. How did you find the school? What was your kind of path to get into the hilltop?
Yeah, path to get to the hilltop was interesting. I grew up in football my whole life. My dad played in the league. We bounced around when he was in the league. He started coaching when I was around, 6, 7. So we had always been just in football. So you get to see all the good, the bad, the ugly sides of it. And, like my whole life, I was really interested in being like a college athlete. I felt like that was, hey, get the degree, um, compete at a really high level, and then, you see what happens and you work towards like, a professional experience. But, at the end of the day, that's the 1% of the 1%. And you don't just have to work hard. You got to be lucky. You got to be this size. You got to be, you got to have all the things. And, to make it to that level, you got to get to college first. So that was my main focus. My mom was an academic advisor at Kansas at the time, so she always stressed academics and just paying attention in class, being responsible when it came to that sort of part of being a student athlete. So yeah, she made me apply to every school that offered me or was interested in me or whatever. So,
Nice.
whether it was like, Mississippi, whatever, or down to even Missouri or Stanford, Pepperdine for running track, whatever it was. She was like, if they're interested in you at all, if they sent you a letter of mail, you're gonna apply, you're gonna get in on your own merit, and then you can leverage that to kind of say, hey, I I I would love this scholarship. I would love this opportunity, but at the end of the day, this is what I'm here for. This is what I need. And, that led me to talking to a few guys at Stanford, talking to even Arkansas State, because, you're 18, you want to play early, you
Yeah.
want to go compete, try to go somewhere like that. And then Stanford ended up being the best option for me at the time. Was talking to Dwayne Aquina, went out there and visited, thought the campus was beautiful. But, it was a little bit more quiet than I think when you're 18, you're looking at really wanting to go to.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, when my dad kind of got the opportunity to come down here at SMU right after being in Jonesboro, he said, hey, I think you'd love this campus. I think you'd love the city. You should come visit. And I went down there and I fell in love with it. Coach Haverty was down there. He kind of pitched me on the whole idea. Sonny Dice was down there. They were talking about legacy, creating. What do you want to do when you're 50? What do you want to do when you're 60? And you know, I couldn't think past 35 anyway. So at
Right.
the time, no one was really asking me those questions, and really incentivized me to see Dallas as something that you could grow in. And they were talking about being like, at the time, I think it was the ninth biggest city in America or like sixth fastest growing, whatever. And, all that stuff is really enticing to a guy who wants to try to grow. So yeah, I ended up going to SMU, man. They told me I could succeed here, and it's been fun so far.
A few kind of items there that I want to unpack. I think a valuable one is your mom's advice of going to and researching these schools that have interest you as a student athlete. Like, how important and what advice, now knowing that, would you give to kind of those people getting recruited of like, hey, go see what these campuses look like. Don't be, football is the one, or the sport is bringing you there, but go tour the facility, see what, more the school can offer you outside of just the football program.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the most important thing. I didn't even know guys were committing without seeing the campus, you know, and just kind of going off the name and what they thought it would be like. So I think visiting, I mean, taking it as far as a sit in on a class, see where you're actually going, especially if you're going to go to a private school. I think when it goes into some of the state schools or something where you can kind of take a class from a computer or you're just turning in modules, it's a little bit different. But if you are going to someone like an SMU and you're going to have to sit in class and you're going to have to participate in class projects and you're actually going to have to do your work and they're going to be able to tell if you plagiarize, then you should, understand what that structure looks like, what's the rigor going to be like, what do I need to prepare for before I get here, what tutoring schedule, all that. So I would definitely say it's super important and to just lean on your counselors too, like they're there to help you. So that's some of the advice I would give. My little brother is 18 and he's at the rival school in Fort Worth, but he's over there at TCU right now. I gave him some of this advice too. I was like, man, just like my freshman year, my first semester, trying to deal with football, like a new space, not really understanding exactly how, a 15 hour class schedule works and that you're gonna have to pick at the end of the semester to drop one of those classes.
Right.
Um, no matter what, like, if you're playing football, there's no way you're gonna be able to do 15 hours. Like it's just like it's
Yeah.
impossible.
It's a full-time job. So you
Yeah,
had,
yeah.
I mean, you were fortunate to come from, parents, one in academia, the other with a background in coaching and sports. So you kind of lived it early. What was your mentality when you stepped on the campus, right? You kind of teased it a little bit there, right? You have this commitment to football. You can only give so much to the academic side, but what were you like as an 18-year-old coming on? Was it, I want to be into coaching. I know I love this creative side of myself. I was an artist in growing up and I wanted to explore that space. Or were you business or kind of an open canvas and kind of seeing, let's meet people and take advantage of these 4 years?
Yeah, for me, it was always how close can I get to what I want to do. We did this exercise when I was my dad, he's all about exercising and like beginning with the end goal in mind. So he's like, what do you want to do? I'm not saying what you want to do forever, but what is exciting to you? Blah, blah, blah. My mom is that constant force of like, always having a process. So what makes you happy, what could make you money, and then what could you do forever? Like even if you're just like gonna be around it and you're not necessarily associated with it in the role that you want to be. Like if you're, for instance, if this was sports and like you love sports and this role makes you money, but you can only be you can't be a coach, but you can be an athletic trainer. Would you still do that?
Right.
And that's the kind of questions they made me ask early on. So I went into marketing and I went into advertising design, and that was the closest I thought I could get to having a career in art at the time with how I was educated on it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that was really it. It was kinda just like a pretty quick, constant conversation going into it. My dad always said, "You're not good like, don't do anything for no reason, but get everything with the end goal in mind." So, before I stepped on campus, it was kinda like, "Hey, you're here, do what you need to do."
So you kind of identified this marketing, advertising, but at the same time, right? Were you an artist kind of your whole time through school and before? You were
Yeah.
always painter. Talk a little bit about that side of you.
Yeah, man, I was always like an artist. Like I grew up with my friends, like I would design all their album covers. I would do all their like jerseys or like always be like making things. I think the first thing I kind of made, I didn't know I was making a sculpture. I thought I was gonna actually do it, but I'd watch like the movie Iron Man, for example, and like researching like the 3D pieces and trying to put it together. And that was my first time trying to deal with fabrication. But even today, like I still use a lot of those skills that I picked up just being curious. Even down to like, stretching a canvas, drop shipping, whatever. Like all
Yeah.
that stuff was, to that 13, 14-year-old kid on YouTube, just checking it all out. It was all there for you. So kind of got to credit that.
And then so tying into that creative mind and artistic mind that you kind of innately had and always are willing to explore, was it the classes and the things you were studying at SMU that started to maybe connect those two worlds between business and the creative arts that kind of led to this, what maybe it's an epiphany or kind of a trial and error to like lead you to where you wanted to explore a professional career?
Yeah, man, definitely trial and error. So quick background on the advertising program at SMU is like they take 15 people. My first time, I didn't get in. I just applied and then was kind of like, oh, this would be cool. And then once you start to learn what the process is, why people are applying, what are the different specializations inside, you kind of get a little bit more competitive, and it seems like something you want at the end goal. But Willie Baronet and Mark Allen, Cheryl Mendenhall are all like really great at what they do, whether it's graphic design, concepting, and then like execution. So there's people who've done what you wanted to do at that program and at that level. So you can kind of just ask them. So you're getting this mentorship idea all throughout the process. So I would say that is a direct factor in what I'm doing now because I feel like I've been doing it since 2018, you know what I mean? Or 2019, whenever I got into the program. Because like it's the same thing. It's just now it's for clients instead of your teachers. There's really no difference. Yeah.
So as we pivot, as you're going through this program, it sounds like you're freelancing still, kind of creating whether it's graphic design or one-off projects for your friends or passion projects. How did you think of, all right, how am I going to now make money doing this? I know you've probably come across and there's people like, we see the brands, we know the logos, we take these things for granted. What kind of clicked for you to say, hey, I have the skill sets and the ability to tell a story that I want to get into the business of and create nostalgia and noise where I am the one-stop shop for everything brand and storytelling.
Yeah, man. It was really interesting. In 2022, that was the first ever shot I took at it. It was right after I graduated, and you know, I decided it was one of those ideas I had that I was like, I'm gonna take a year off and just travel the country and be
Mhm.
an artist, throw these shows and do this thing. So I did this business plan, went through it. I took creative entrepreneurship with Jim Hart. So I felt like, I knew everything in the world. So I kind of was
Mhm.
like, this is exactly what I need to do. I did it once. Somebody saw it and I had a relationship with this guy named Scott Terrell, who was with University All Stars, and they kind of just saw that I could design, I could get people there, I could collaborate with the company, and that then I went into kind of startups from there. And I hope this is answering your questions kind of a
Yeah,
roundabout, but
totally.
and he was like, "Hey, like, what do you think you can do with this, and what do you think you are doing with this?" And I told him, and then he kind of explained to me that I was missing a few parts of like, where's my actual business model, like outside of my head? How can I like, what's my monetization strategy? Like, where am I going to find these partners? Am I keeping a book of partners? Like, how am I going to build business off business I already have? Am I going to be more of a solicitor, or am I going to like, be more forward facing with my brand and have people come to me? And it was a lot of things I just hadn't really totally thought about, especially being like 22 and just out of school feeling like you do it
Yeah.
all. So it was a humbling moment that I needed. And I ended up working directly with Scott. And he had owned a few different agencies in Dallas. And he's the kind of guy who was always doing something in the design space or always had a client, always kind of working and learning about his process, especially the like sales process and the business development process from him kind of has him what we do with nostalgia and noise, where it's always like, always got to have something in the oven, but also like, you're kind of like a chef, like you've got this menu and you just kind of have to like almost pre-make it or kinda have the ingredients ready to where you can execute on time and with your specific style. So that's what I learned there, and, through from that point from 2022, I kinda sat on nostalgia noise and you talked about it earlier, but I started working with Rogers Healy over at Morrison Seeger Venture Capital Partners, and that was another kind of educational process where I was like, "Okay, cool, people aren't like necessarily funding all these things with their own money or like they're building themselves to a certain point and then getting investors. So through that, you learn about, like I learned about, Kobe investing into body armor, and you know how 50 cents like cultural capital kind of helped with vitamin water, and what that deal looked like. So you start to learn about like how to monetize social capital, cultural capital, and then also what's the price tag on it, and where do I need to be for that to
Yeah.
actually make a difference business wise, and all of that. Like, yeah, through all this, it's all like kind of building into nostalgic noise, and it kind of you sit down and you're like, hey, what if there is this really cool cultural agency that communicated and specialized in art, music, and culture oriented activities, and whether that's sports, whether that's music, whether that's art. um, that seems like a really flexible, it seems like it has multiple different angles that it can operate in. And then you just start to look at different people like Live Nation, Translation. You look at, Gang up in Indianapolis, who's done that over the past 5 years. And you see it's possible, learning about guys like Steve Stout, Jay-Z, whatever, and taking their model and doing it here where it may not be as prevalent. This isn't, Dallas is great, but it's not New York, it's not LA, it's not Miami, where your necessarily social capital always translates into what works here.
Yeah. I think what makes me so high on the concept of what you're building, one, you see the passion, but I think you being a creative yourself, you understand the need that those folks have, to be able to expand their reach. I think you also have the community to where people who might have this idea, they don't know the artists, they don't know the way to get those people involved. But then you also have the business acumen and the business mind to pull all those together. Can you tell us what you guys have done to date at Nostalgia Noise, and then what your kind of either upcoming events that our audience can think about, and what you have planned for the future, and how our greater SMU network, from the business owners to the creatives to the students, should think about using you all in the future?
Yeah, and to that analogy, like back then, just like trying to keep a few things cooking at the same time, but make sure they're all in this menu in the same oven and have a process to them. But Nostalgia and Noise, up to this point, we've done with my business partner Rob Grass, we've done 83 different activations total in that year and a half. We've done everything from like hospitality to apartment complex to you know even a nightclub to working directly with athletes. We're doing a deal with SMU that, if on homecoming and on the game against Syracuse, you'll see the illustrations come out and meet the artists and all that. So kind of just spanning across different industries, but in that art, music, and culture lane. Then from that concept, we found another need called NOSTA, private members club centered around art, hospitality, music, community, and just allowing for people to have a really cool space to hang out that, for people who are caught in the where do I go? What do I do? I'm still looking to go out, still looking to have fun, but I want to do it in a controlled setting.
Yeah.
This is for them. So just about like finding a way to elevate your lifestyle in a way that is, with people that you want to meet, with people who you necessarily wouldn't have ran into, but
Mhm.
learn something from the conversation.
What is it about events and building this community that you think is so important in today's day and age, and for the space you're playing in?
Yeah, I think I'm a direct recipient of the benefit of community. And I think a lot of people, especially with how fast the city's growing, are not experiencing a community in Dallas. Every single time, just anecdotally, people are coming to these events. We have over 5,000 people who have attended an event in the past year. And they're saying, wow, I've been in Dallas for a year. I've been in Dallas for 6 months. I've been in Dallas for 8 months and haven't met a single person that I would want to go to coffee or lunch or whatever with.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's not something that you want from a city that's growing this fast. I think you can lose your personality and your energy, and
And it's
what
hard in
does
a
it mean?
digital world, right? I mean, you're the
Exactly.
age of these folks, like, it's easy to get lost online, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, what does it mean to be from Dallas? You know, is this a city that you just come to and then you can travel other places? Like, that's not really where I want to live. It's
Right,
not where I
right,
want
right.
to be. You know? And if I, grow up in this world, I would love for my kids to experience an art, music, culture, community centered environment so that when they're 35, 25, 15, they have a sense of this is important to an identity. This is going to broaden my worldview. And I think if we put certain things on the back burner, like understanding ethics, like that there's really not a difference between me and you, um, I think that's gonna, kind of crumble
Yeah.
some of the fabric that we've built
Yeah, people
here,
gotta get together. The more they get together, they see, wait, why, what, so does Dallas have I know historically they've known for their musicians and artists. Is that community here? Is it just it needs a platform like yours to get out there and meet brands and have exposure? Or is that something that continues to need to grow here within the DFW metroplex of more art, more artists coming here and thinking this is a good hub for them to be able to work and play
yeah,
and grow?
yeah. And with nostalgia noise, like what we found is that there is so many creatives here. Like I think that they a lot of them all know each other. They all like kind of run in the same groups. They know the organizations. But I think when there might be some wires crossed when it comes to communicating to the wider public. So
Mhm.
our approach to how do we make nostalgia noise, bigger, better, stronger as an organization is like just strengthening the communication between people who are going to these art shows and people who could see themselves as purists and then like tourists and just want to do something fun. I think
Absolutely.
that when people think of like art community, even like culture, like it just feels like something serious, like I've got to go get dressed up. I've got to do this.
Mm.
Instead of like looking nice, let me go find my jacket. Like there's a space for that. But I also think there's a space for, just having a good time around these concepts and just I think when it comes to like the social impact of that, like when you include artists and creatives and smaller musicians and all the talent that's here in Dallas inside of that like creative economy and that entertainment economy, now you're pushing so many more dollars instead of, paying for something else. It's $20 to this person's show at, a Three Links or a Trees or something like
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
where they're able to like actually then pour that into getting more producers for their own work, camera work for their own stuff. And then, just creating those big triumph stories that we love to hear where it's like
amazing.
Leon is and other people, like they built their own brands in Dallas and now they're still here and people recognize like EFW and especially Fort Worth with that, you
Yeah.
know. Big
Let's
X is a great example too.
Yeah, let's talk about how you help brands or businesses, kind of and the value add that working with creatives and these activations can do, right? So you had mentioned, in that past year, 83, I think you said activation events, over 5,000 people attending some of these events. Um, how are you working with brands? How should brands consider that? And how are our business owner audience thinks about working with you?
Yeah, so the good thing about what we do is that it's industry flexible. So it's real estate. I'll give you an example. We were just talking about Irby a little bit before we press play on this, but we took over a whole floor of the Irby apartment complex. We took 6 different units over. And in those units, we've placed 4 different artists. So each unit turns into its own contemporary art gallery. So it's taking art from a place where people aren't to taking it to a place where people are, and then at the end of the day, marketing the Irby where we have 300 plus attendees walking around the space, viewing these units, seeing how nice the apartment complex is. Then you tie in the after party where they're just having fun, and now you have like a mix of residents talking about how great the space is and what they like, what they would fix about it, mixed in with people who are, coming probably for the first time, and you're seeing their pool, their courtyard, you're hearing the DJs. So you're kind of it's kind of like sneaking a little bit of medicine into, something like if you for
The food.
it,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So you're sneaking some medicine to the food. So like, hey, how can we somebody can approach us with a concept, for example, Irby, and they're like, we want to be a place where creative, cool, interesting people come, or people who just want to be around this sort of environment who might
Yeah.
have a pretty strict day-to-day job. What can we do? And this is a concept that we package, execute from concept to all the way to bringing the people there, the marketing, down to doing the name tags and the staff lanyards, whatever. So every
And
part of that is us, even down to the ticketing platform.
amazing. So if we sit down here in 5 years, what's the vision? What's the hope? Where do you think you guys? I know we're still young. We got. I think your
Yeah.
biggest challenge is just decide to stay narrow focused, right? There's so many cool lanes, and I know so many passions of yours that you want to play in. What does 5 years from now look like for you and the team?
Yeah, and I mean, you described it perfectly. This past really year and change has been about what can we be the best in the world at, and where do we see that there's a need for something, and then what are we passionate about, and just kind of cutting away some of the fat, where it's like, all right, we focus on the studio, and we focus on events and activations centered around art, music, and culture. That that's it. And what that looks like, we're incorporating a model where we do these bigger events per year. We staff them. We work directly with brands on solving an issue they have. If, for example, we have something coming up in November where it's four down and skaters feel like there's a lack of community. Four Down has partners with Dickies and other national brands. How do we activate those brands in Dallas, but in an interesting way, solving that issue for them through the event activations, through the creative marketing campaigns that are therefore approaching, like marketing the events. And then if there's some supplementary factors in there, like apparel that we can design or
Yeah,
skateboard for sale and just different revenue generating activities, then that's what we do. But nothing outside of the scope for that specific event, and getting, not trying to get distracted in artist management or,
right.
book plan or anything like that. It's like,
Yeah,
hey, this is what we're doing. We're just creating the infrastructure. And, if the brand is the rapper and we're the producer, we're laying down the infrastructure and pillow for them to kind of like lay on.
for sure. Well said. I mean, I'm excited to see it grow. We'll be sure to link events that you have in this conversation. Um, we're going to use you guys at 1911 for a few events and at your space in soon. So it's going to be a great partnership. It's been awesome to hear this story and excited to check back in with you year by year and see where you've taken it. So Ra, thank you for the time today. And looking forward to see you on the hilltop and working with more SMU alums in the future.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate your time and look forward to kind of, working on this partnership together. I'm excited to get this going.
Absolutely. All right, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, see you later.
This episode of SMU Stories is made possible by our incredible sponsors, Security National Bank, Hilltop Property Tax, SMU Cox School of Business, Mignon Steakhouse, and Sound of a Rose podcast.